I do want to put this up here, coffee, because this gets to the sentiment right here. I'm going to talk about it. There is no argument for AI art. The ones who argue for it don't care about art or the artist and just want results and what they want at any cost. It's pretty much true. I should say, when I say, because I left it kind of vague in the title, AI makes you stupid. I'm talking about AI, people who use AI for art, writing, music, art, whatever, and try to pretend that they're valid artists because they, since they've used AI. They're not. I'm not saying all AI creations are stupid. I think AI is for entertainment purposes. I said before, I like the trailers that people will put on YouTube, like what if Star Wars was made in the 50s, or what if a He-Man movie was made in the 50s or whatever, and it's AI trailers, and you can tell it's AI. It's very obviously AI. It's not pleasing to look at in any other context than going in knowing that this is just a goofy AI joke generated thing, But imagine the people who make those channels and make those trailers to be like, we're true artists. No, we created this with our own. The AI was just a tool, much like you would use a keyboard to write your stuff. It's just absurd. We'll get to all that in a moment. But but yeah, that's what I mean by. So I don't mean anybody who happens to use an AI generator to come up with an image for a thumbnail for a video or something like that. I mean people who use AI art in lieu of a skill that they should have, or a skill that they should, like in the sake of comics or whatever, somebody who's, let's say they were a writer, but they wanted to just use AI for the art because they're not an artist. They don't want to hire an artist. AI is just their way of getting into the game. No, AI is your way of cheating. So yeah, so I'm not saying anything you might use AI for just as sort of entertainment purposes, as a joke or a gag or whatever. I'm talking about people who try to pass it off as real art. It's not. We'll talk about that more. I was at a conference the other day for sort of a workshop on, brushing up on things before you, every so often, it's good to get some new ideas, professors to share ideas about, certain subjects you're teaching and whatnot. And it was great. I got some good, ideas from it. There were some talks on things like, how to try to help students read, become better readers, especially in today's day and age, when they're just, I've talked about this on my channel before, their brains, they just don't have the attention span. But, the technology that we have today is just, they're the TikTok generation where their attention spans are all of, 5 seconds. Scroll, 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 and it's like, sit down and read a book. What? Is that even a thing? Can people do that? So, so we're talking about ways to do that. And there's always, it never fails to, just depress me / fascinate me, whatever. At these conferences, whenever you get a bunch of academics together, there's always ridiculous elements in there. And there's this one woman talking about, it's not their fault. You can't blame your students for being in this generation and not being able to pay attention and blah, blah, blah. And she was really like harping on this. Now, on the one hand, at first I thought she just meant that, hey, it's not a Gen Zer's fault being born in the Gen Z generation. It's not their fault being born with the technology and the challenges around them. Okay, sure. But it very much is their fault if they're going to choose not to try, not to, if they've made it to the college level and still can't sit down and read a book for 30 minutes even, then yeah, it's their fault. They could have developed that skill. They chose not to. Okay, so yeah, it's very much their fault. And the fact that a lot of the students you get in at college even still don't care. They just, look, how can I just fudge this class to get through this crappy writing nonsense that you're trying to make me do? And so I can get out of there here or whatever, So yeah, you can absolutely blame them. It's just because you're born in a certain generation, you'll have challenges that are outside of your control, but how you respond to them is very much in your control. So that was just a dumb notion. Then I was shocked at the very end of this conference, of this workshop. This guy started to present, and he was presenting on how, and this is a college writing class, like a sort of a college composition. They used to call them college comps. He actually he makes his students use ChatGPT. And he has assignments where they have to use ChatGPT and where they can't use ChatGPT. And, it's all about, helping them use the technology but also, as a starting point, but then, making sure that they actually take the bare bones of what ChatGPT has given them and then, work it around and make it, kind of fluid and make it sound not so, AI-ish, and put their own spin on it or whatever, then they're not writing. They're not writing. I was flabbergasted when I heard this guy say that this is something he teaches in class. And there was this sort of overall sentiment around a lot of the professors, like, yeah, people, you really need to get on board and embrace this AI stuff. Come on now. You can't be living in the past. I mean, this is a tool that we have now. No. I can't even begin to understand the reasoning. And I was trying to pay attention through this, this conference, like, okay, what is there? Are they going to give me some sort of defense? Are they going to give me some sort of reasoning that they have, which maybe I won't agree with, but at least I'll still say, okay, they're at least coming from a side here. And they didn't. Like, the best they could come up with was, look, AI is a thing now, guys. ChatGPT's out there. They're going to use it. You might as well teach them how to use it responsibly. No, this is a class on how to write. It used to be a mantra that we said in writing classes all the time. And I don't hear it said very much anymore at all. But it's 100% true. Writing is thinking. That's so 100% true. If you're writing something out, the reason why it's hard, whether you're writing a report or an essay or a fiction, story or whatever, it's hard because you're having to think through it. You're having to order your thoughts, and you're trying to communicate something in a logical way, in a way that will make sense and actually get your meaning across to a reader. And especially if it's a creative piece that you're writing, you want it to get your meaning across in a creative way. It's work. It's thinking. Writing is thinking. And people who don't write or can't write well at all, and this is a controversial thing to say, I don't care, it shouldn't be. It used to not be a controversial thing to say at all. If you can't write well, you can't think well. And I don't mean like, okay, maybe you have problems with the actual tactile process of writing, if you need to dictate or something like that, whatever, that's fine. But if you can't produce a written piece of work through whatever, means that's not, it just should be your thinking straight to the screen or to the paper. All right. ChatGPT AI is not just a tool. It's something that thinks for you. And that's crossed the line. That's no longer a tool. It's no longer just like somebody using a pencil. No, it's not. That's a ridiculous argument to make. It shows how dumbed down your thinking already is, if that's your defense. Look, it's just a tool. It's like any other tool. No, it's not. It's doing the thinking for you. That's not okay. We'll talk more about that in a second. People who can't write can't think very well. If you ask somebody, one of the essays that commonly get assigned to students is, a core belief essay. Write about something that you really believe in, one of your core beliefs or something that you do in this I believe type essays, And the point of that kind of essay is to help students realize that, you might have gone all your life and pick big picture things like, do you believe in God or not? What do you believe about abortion? Like big picture things that people tend to have pretty strong opinions on or thoughts on. They're pretty strongly, in one niche or the other, usually. Even if it's like, an agnostic, they're usually pretty strongly, this is why I don't believe anybody could say there is a God or there isn't a God. They're strongly attached to a belief in some way, usually. And then you have them start writing out why. Write out your reasons. Make it make sense to the reader why you believe this. They can't do it. It's very hard. It's very difficult because today's society has just privileged or allowed people to just say, man, I just believe it. Don't judge me. I just believe it. I just want to believe it. Yeah, but can you give a reason for it? Is there do you have a line of reasoning? Can you explain to me why you believe this? I don't mean in sort of a debate form. I don't mean, show me how, beyond a shadow of a doubt. No, like, can't you show me how you come to this belief? And they can't do it. And that's poor thinking. And that's what technology has created in people today, especially young people growing up with this technology. And now they have AI as a crutch to go through the rest of their life, not having to correct their brain's atrophy, not having to, learn how to think well and learn how to communicate well. Now they just have AI to do it for them. No. That's crap. That's garbage. That has nothing to do with don't be left behind, guys. This is the new technology, the new age. No, that is dangerous. That is creating these zombies in the world. That is not at all okay. 100% no. Never let a student use AI in the classroom. So that's my own personal, where it touches my own profession and whatnot. And you see it out there in the creative world too. I mean, there are, I'll say more about this in a moment, but I'm actually starting to publish my short stories just straight up to Kindle, straight up to Amazon, one at a time, just, like $2 a piece or whatever, and I've got my first one. It's about to be processed, I think, tomorrow. I'll talk more about that later. But so for the last, month or so, I've been really kind of researching, just to make sure I do it right on Kindle and all this kind of stuff. And there are so many people who are trying to jump on this sort of bandwagon, this sort of get rich quick scheme with Kindle. And, some of it's, sure, okay, there's nothing ideologically opposed to that or whatever, like people who want to do journals, like, look, you can publish your journal and, because it's blank pages and you just come up with a pretty design or a pretty theme or whatever and sell it. Sure. Okay. Whatever. If you want to do that. The big thing right now, apparently, is some people doing crossword puzzles, and they'll use ChatGPT or they'll use something like that in AI to kind of, throw together crossword puzzles. Okay. I mean, that's, there doesn't need to really be a human element to crossword puzzles. If you want to use a computer generated, algorithm or whatever to spit that out and then you check it and make sure it's actually right, sure, whatever, that's fine. But there are people who truly have AI write them a book, and then they put it on Amazon. They get an AI cover and then AI children's book, and they tell AI, write me a children's book about a dog in a magical world with whatever, and they think that they've written that book. They think that they have some sort of authorial ownership of that book. They don't. They absolutely don't. And people say, well, what's the point? Well, what if I'm using my writing, or you get this with artists a lot, right? Look, I'm using my art. This is something that I drew, but I'm asking AI to shift it to a certain style or whatever. So AI is just my tool, guys. It's just like a filter I might use on my, digital creator. No, it's not. AI is gathering everything it knows from other human being creators. And then they come back with this. Well, what's wrong with that? I mean, us humans, we learn from other people, right? We're inspired by different artists and things we see. So what's wrong with the computer doing that? Because it's a computer. What do you mean? What's wrong with a computer doing that? A computer doesn't get that agency. How can you? The reasoning behind this is so ridiculous. If you're an artist or a writer or whatever, and you start, or a musician, because Sound Engraver he's talked a lot about AI art, especially in the musician vein, our last few streams. But if you take something that you've created, like the first form of it, and you go put it in an AI art for, you want AI to do this or that to it, AI has become your co-artist. AI has become your co-writer. You don't have full ownership of that work anymore. You can't get to claim credit for that anymore. It's been co-authored by something else. And because AI is not a person, it's not a person with agency to co-author, guess who's your co-author? Your co-artists are all the artists out there that you've just blatantly stolen from. You've used an algorithm to steal from other artists. You can't see the difference between that and just being inspired by other artists. But, you were inspired by a writer or an artist. You're like, oh, those ideas are great, and if you're going to do it in a way that actually, is not plagiarism and is legal for you to sell or put out there, then you have to put your own context around it. You have to take it and be inspired by it, not just copy it. AI just copies it. Okay. AI does not have a human brain to actually know. And people just, they can't reason this through. They can't think, no, but and part of it's that they don't want to reason it through because they want the crutch. They want it, but look, AI is the ground leveler. It lets me, I wouldn't be able to put out my comic if I couldn't use AI art because, I can't pay all these artists. Well, then you shouldn't put out a comic. I'm sorry. If you can't draw and you can't afford an artist, then you don't get to put out a comic. That's just the way that is. You don't get to do it, and that's okay. Talent is there's a meritocracy to talent and hard work. You don't get to do stuff that you aren't talented or skilled or able to do or can't afford to do. That's just the way that works. And it's a real spit in the face to artists or writers who really kind of struggle to improve their craft. It's bizarre. It's mind-boggling that people actually stand behind this reasoning. I'll talk about it more in a second, but Studio Super, thank you for the super chat. So we are truly living in the time of the Jetsons. Well, time to clean the house. Press button. Phew, a woman's work is never done. That's funny. And I'm glad you brought that up because, see, it's one thing to use AI for something like that. Like, if you've got a Roomba or something, that vacuums your floor, there's no part of the human soul that Roomba is trying to replicate to vacuum your floor, right? So that's one thing. It's another thing if you're like, AI, write me a novel. Art is only there to entertain, Art doesn't affect you in any way. It doesn't shape who you are. It's just there to entertain. So if a computer generated it versus whatever, then that's all it is. And art is there to do more than entertain. Art's there to communicate something. Art's there to get into a relationship with the person who partakes of that art. We were talking about that in writing, but it's certainly true with any art. You form a relationship with the piece of art that you engage with to a certain degree. Now, it's somewhat one-sided in that you can't speak back to the author, this dead author or whatever, you're reading their book. They're talking to you through that book, their ideas, their themes and whatever. And then you can speak back to them in terms of your reaction to the work. But that's still a relationship, right? That's still a conversation. That's why some books really mean a lot to you and maybe not so much to others or whatever. You're going to have that kind of relationship with a computer algorithm? You can't. And if you, to whatever extent you're able to, it's because the algorithm has stolen those human elements from other people, other artists, other writers, other people who actually, no, but they're just learning from them. No, they're stealing. Stop it. It's an algorithm. It's not a person. It's not a person who can be inspired by something. It's a freaking computer algorithm. Speak English. Use the facts. Stop trying to spin this in these ridiculous ways. Oh, man. Sound Engraver for $2. Thank you so much, my dear. Said, but Prof, billions should make art. Billions. No. Yeah, if you're not able to make art, then you can't make art. If you need to put in a lot of years and a lot of hard work to be a writer or a comic artist or whatever, then guess what? You need to put in those years. You don't get to just click a fast track. And the notion that today's generation just thinks they should be able to do that is depressing. It says so much about who we are as a people today. It's disgusting. I could not believe the college professor. And there was one woman too, the same woman who was like, it's not their fault. She spoke up and she said, yeah, I use ChatGPT in my classes and I don't know why, sometimes I just feel so guilty for doing it. And I think maybe it's wrong. And I don't know where that's coming from because I know in my heart that it's the right thing to do. I'm like, you have a conscience, for crying out loud. What do you mean you don't know what you're doing? You have a conscience. I never heard of it. And that's just how twisted these people's minds are, twisted their souls are. Oh, it's just so bizarre.